Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board.
We are the weirdos, mister.
Black as night, erase death from our sight. White as light, mighty hectate make it right.
I myself am strange and unusual.
Cast a circle, spark some incense, and grab a cup of tea, because it's time for the Cousins Coven podcast. I'm Sharon.
And this is Wendy. Welcome back to the Coven.
Happy winter solstice, everyone.
Yes.
Happy holidays. We are recording a special solstice episode today. So we're going to go ahead and start things off by lighting our virtual Yule log.
Yay.
So hope you enjoy the flame ASMR and cozy vibes that we're going to be having today. And I do have a little bit of backstory on Yule logs, just because in case you're not familiar with the tradition. I looked it up and I found out it's actually originated from like a Nordic Germanic paganism to light a Yule log, and the custom was that basically the whole process of the Yule log was loaded with lots of ritual and intent, and it would vary depending on what region you were in, and a log would be anointed with maybe wine or salt and be burned on the winter solstice. And it is said that the log had to be lit using the leftover log from last year, so I guess you can't let it burn all the way out, which I think is a bit tricky. And then you would store a piece of that old Yule log under a bed to kind of protect the house against house fires and lightning. So this Yule log had a lot of like protection and power attached to it. And you would never buy a Yule log, which kind of made me think about how people say that with tarot cards.
Yeah.
Like, to buy a deck, you have to find a deck.
Right.
So that was kind of how they looked at Yule logs as well. It'd be better luck to find one maybe in your yard area or whatever land you owned, or if one was gifted to you. And a lot of times people around this time of year would decorate with holly and ivy leaves decorated outside, and they would also bring that into their homes and bring the trees into the homes to remind themselves of the greenery, since it was such a harsh time back in the day going through winter. And the idea of bringing in the decorations into your home like that was to attract nature spirits.
I love it. So
Yay.
that's why we do that tradition?
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize that. That's awesome.
A lot of that decorating with all of the greenery and bringing your tree inside, it all kind of comes back to this whole solstice vibes.
It's not...
Oh, what were you going to say?
It's not religious. It's really just...
I guess it just depends, because the solstice does deal with like the tradition of looking at the sun and the sun gods. So I guess you can kind of put whatever religion you want on that. But yeah.
I love that. And calling of the nature spirits, that explains a lot.
I know. It makes me
Explains a
happy.
lot. Yeah.
So I feel like for today's episode, we are welcoming all nature spirits and friendly ghosts, and of course our ancestors who joined us in the recording of this episode.
Absolutely.
And we're going to have a good time telling some ghost stories.
Yeah, I think I just have some chills going up my arm.
Ooh,
Look.
I got goosebumps. Okay, so you're feeling some ghost vibes.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm like really warm, but then all of a sudden I've got this.
That's true.
Yeah.
Ooh, so we're already feeling the chill of ghosts in the air.
Nice. So I did have a couple of news and other things to talk about, if we can talk about that before our main topic here. So, I just wanted to say thank you to you.
What? To me?
Yeah, to you. Because
Aww.
I feel like since you've been here and living here, like we've gotten even closer. I didn't know that was even possible.
Right.
But I'm just thankful to have you in my life.
Aww.
And
Thank you. I'm thankful to have you too.
I love it.
I feel like having each other and having this project that we've been working on, it made me moving back home even easier and just like a joyous thing, because now we're together to be able to explore, find Bigfoot, call
and
upon
spirits,
ghosts, do witchcraft together. So I'm so thankful for you and of course this podcast and all of our listeners.
Thank you. Yes,
So-
we're happy to have listeners. I had a couple of experiences this week. One was last week. Last week I was at my son's performance. He does band, and so they had this winter festival. It was just really touching and really nice, and I was living in the moment, which is something kind of hard. We're either, our feet are always in the past or in the future, and we're never really fully living in the moment. And it was like I just had let go of everything else. I wasn't thinking about Christmas's past or Christmas's future. I was thinking about me and my family. And I just felt overwhelmed with joy that I started crying and I couldn't stop. It was like, it wasn't a bad thing. It was just joy. And I just felt so much love for everybody in my life. And so
I like that.
Just loved it. And so I'm hoping that everybody has that experience at some point in their life. And I've been trying the past week to live in that joy moment. And I found that when I'm not thinking about those other things and I am living here, that my life has put me on a different level. Like I feel like I'm leveling up or something.
Yes, that's a lot of spiritualists and gurus will talk about how present moment awareness is super key to feel everything you're feeling, even if it's bad or good.
Right.
But like the fact that you were able to just kind of immerse yourself, I'm sure the music was changing the atmosphere of the room. Everyone watching was probably joyous, and you're really vibing off all that joy and cheer and happiness. And to just be able to enjoy it, that's a really good lesson for the holidays.
Yeah, it's good. So I highly suggest that everybody try that. I know it's so hard. Like I've been trying my whole life to live in the moment and I've only experienced it maybe once or twice. And really we should be doing that every day.
And every moment. Yeah. With anxiety, it is always like worrying about the past or, oh my gosh, I've got to get this bill paid. Oh, how am I going to get the bill paid? So you're always just constantly, for me sometimes, I'm in a worry mode or survival mode. So if you can just be.
Yeah, just be. And it's hard because, like, I think partially the reason why I was able to do it now was because I've dealt with a lot of that past shit. Like, I've been trying to let go and working, not just, oh, I'm going to bury it in a box and I'm never going to see it again and later on it's going to creep up with some dust bunnies on it. I'm actually dealing with it. Yeah, getting rid of it.
Good. So you can actually just enjoy
this
moment.
I'm like, oh my gosh, it's taken me forever. And my poor son, you know, he's only 17. He was like, I've never felt joy before. And I was like, don't worry, I hadn't at your age either. It's like, it's just life. Hopefully you don't have that. I was like, it'll come to you. You just have to get old first.
First you have to experience such sorrow that the simple things can create such joy.
Yeah.
Gotta walk through the darkness.
Right. It kind of leads me into our Agatha doll.
Okay, cool. So you have a doll update?
I have 2 doll updates.
Okay, so our little haunted doll is sitting in our room with us, and we did invite spirits to touch her once again. That sounds creepy. But she talks if you touch her.
Yes, she talks if you touch her. So this week, my daughter had an experience. She was home alone. These things happen when we're not with other people, so it's difficult because you're like, I need some verification,
right?
You know, that's just how we are in our minds. We need verification and somebody proof. We need a witness other than our dog who can't talk.
She's probably witnessed it all.
Yeah. So Clarissa was playing with the dog in the living room, and the doll is in our office, which is kind of adjacent to the living room. And she said she was just sitting there feeding her a snack and rubbing her back, and the doll went off, which proceeded for the dog to start barking. Was like, what's going on? They came in here. It was colder than normal. That was it. It was over.
These ghosts definitely love to do it when no one's watching. They like to make her move when we're not recording.
Right.
Like, is it ever going to happen while we're recording?
I hope so. And then this is the best thing. I wish I would have had a camera on it. But we put up our Christmas tree, and I had put the lights on it. And the tree that we got, it doesn't have a place to put our star at the top, so we just put a ball of lights and then put Agatha in the tree on the top as our tree topper, and she was in there. Her legs were really in there, like she couldn't fall out. It's
almost like a basket.
Yeah.
You don't have the top pointy part of the tree for some reason. It's just,
it's just
trees are
been
not
locked
always perfect.
Off. Yeah.
So she was kind of sitting in almost like a basket of tree and lights.
Yeah. Okay. So she was in there really good, like she couldn't fall over. And I went into the kitchen so our tree's in the living room kind of near our fireplace, and I went into the kitchen, which is off of it's kind of this open concept, I guess. Yeah. And so I was in there, and the dog was in the kitchen with me, and I hear the dog go off. I turn around, the dog starts barking, and when I look, Agatha is midair just kind of hovering, and then she slams to the ground. And I was like speechless.
the hover is a lot.
Right, because if she had, let's say she'd been jostled, like we were stomping on the ground and somehow she fell out of the tree. None of that was happening. Everybody was here and the house was upstairs and I was the only one downstairs with the dog.
It makes me feel like there was a ghost who picked it up for a moment and was holding it kind of above their head like Simba, the lion, and then just like either dropped it or threw it on the ground.
Yeah.
Did it feel like gravity or like a force throwing it down?
It felt like a force.
So, yeah.
It didn't feel like gravity. And it was hovering. I mean, I just was like, what's happening right now?
Is Agatha possessed?
Right. I was like, what's going on? And then we picked her up off of the floor. Like, my daughter, like, I yelled. I was like, somebody come downstairs. So my daughter comes running down. And she's like, what happened? What's all the barking about? What's going on? What are you yelling about? So I had to tell her what happened. She picked the doll up off of the floor and the doll was hot to the touch.
And that's not from Christmas lights.
No.
Do you think that whoever was, I'm assuming it's a ghost at this point. Do you feel like the ghost was mortified that a little creepy doll was on top of the tree?
I don't know. It's hard to say.
Because it's supposed to be like a position for the star or an angel, and you have like this bleeding eye doll.
I think we're going to have to sit down.
Ask some questions.
And ask some questions.
Okay, perfect. So for our winter solstice, our little Cousins Coven celebration, I know we're going to try to talk to some ghosts. So we'll do that.
Right. We do have this, for listeners, I know Sharon's seen it, but I do have this photo up on the wall that is of my husband's grandfather's like troop of people that were in the military with him. And it kind of looks like something straight out of The Shining. It's this picture of all these people and
right, it looks just like that photo.
Yeah, it looks just like that photo where they're all kind of in this room,
fancy dressed to the nines.
Yes.
A large gathering of people just staring at the camera smiling.
Right. And we have always gotten vibes off of that and used our spirit box on it and heard voices and
noises
that you would not hear on a spirit box, like a party going on and that kind of thing.
I see.
So we've often wondered if the people in there, the energy of that photo is somehow coming out.
That's really, really cool because that is a concept that I've seen dabbled with Hollywood and stuff like that, where the idea of like pictures can emanate that moment in time.
Right.
That's a lot of power that a photo could potentially have. And
right.
so for those energies to be able to still express themselves in other ways that we're not really picking up with our little senses that we have as humans, but that your ghost equipment can.
Yeah.
Interesting. So if that's like a portal to a time, just
like a portal to the past.
Yeah.
So then it makes you wonder, are all pictures like that? So it's something we should experiment with to see.
Yeah. Interesting.
If other photos have that same experience. Because I've had that with paintings before where I've seen and felt energy off of them. But for paintings, it's a different type of energy. It's more like
the artist's energy,
that what they put into it when they were creating it, what kind of stuff they were using to make it, that kind of thing.
And that makes 100% sense because so much energy is going into the creation of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
And intentions.
Yeah. That's a lot of cool paranormal ideas.
Yeah. So just a little snippet of an update on Agatha. Hopefully there's more to come, but hopefully we'll have some like definitive proof someday. Gotta get some new equipment and some stuff.
Like we joke about how we should have a camera on Agatha all day, but honestly the work involved in doing that is ridiculous to have a 24-hour surveillance cam and then watch it every day, all day.
Right.
So it's like, will we ever see Agatha captured on film hovering or talking?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But the fact that like your intuition is telling you it might have been someone from the photograph, that's a good lead.
Right. Or it could be, because we have rearranged our room recently, and I don't know if everybody remembers, but on Samhain we had experiences with spirit that was located in the area where my couch is, kind of. And so maybe that person had nowhere to go. So maybe he's kind of hovering around the tree now. So that's another option, is what I thought too.
Okay, we're going to get to the bottom of this, hopefully.
Yeah. Lots of good things.
Yeah.
And as if that wasn't enough, I have these 2 news articles
Awesome.
that I wanted to talk about.
I have no idea what they are, so
yeah,
I'm excited.
so I'm kind of excited. They're videos, so we'll link them below, but I'm going to have Sharon watch one now. You'll have to watch them. One of them, it comes from abc15.com, and this happens in Mesa Valley in Arizona.
Okay.
There happened to be a UFO sighting,
Ooh.
and they caught it on video.
Yes.
And so, Sharon, I'm going to have you watch it for the first time, and then maybe we can discuss it afterwards.
Okay,
So,
cool. And maybe we could try to describe what we're seeing.
right. So it's a news thing, so there will be a commercial first. We'll probably edit that out so you guys don't have to hear that crap.
Okay, yeah. It's queued up for you, and we'll have a little, for me,
like
a live reaction.
Yeah. Look, this is what it is.
Okay, so this is actually on like a local news station.
Right.
So it looked like 3 lights, and then
Like a ball and lights coming down. And basically, the guy who had the experience, he said they were out looking, looked up and saw this, and other neighbors were watching it too. At first, they thought that it was a military experiment.
because it looks like one light is dropping like missile lights,
Right.
And
Which
then they just
could
disappear.
be right. Sometimes they have flares, and that could be a flare thing. But when they zoom in on it, this is not flare reactive.
They're
That's not how
perfect
flares.
circles.
Right. And so they did contact the military, the police, or not the police station, the news. The news station did their business like a news place should, and so they researched to see, hey, is the military involved? Was there aircraft? Was there training? Nothing. And so they likened it to the Phoenix Lights.
That's what I'm seeing here, yeah.
Yeah.
So, unlike the Phoenix Lights, it's not just a constant hover. It's one hovering
Right.
ball of light dropping about 4 balls of light that just drop down.
Right.
Do you feel like, okay, let's just say it's aliens because why not?
Right.
Do you feel like that would be like one alien mothership deploying little ships?
It could, to be honest with you, see, this is what the lights look like when it's military related.
Okay, so
That's
they're
what it
showing
looked
us
like.
an
Yeah,
example.
so not to distract. I think that it's something that's up there.
And then they just dissipate, which was
And then
weird.
they just dissipate the little balls that come from it. And they said that the main craft itself was there for about 20 minutes and then took off. So to me, it was definitely something that was a craft from the video that I could see and from the dude's experience. But was it an alien craft? I don't know. And that's the thing that we have to think about, is that when it comes to military craft, we don't know all of the projects. And
Of
as I have
course not.
said before in past episodes, if you don't need to know, then you're not on that list of people who knows what it is. So even though the news place did their due diligence to reach out to the military, there was a military base near that area within a half an hour.
Right, they don't have to disclose anything, really.
Right. So it could have been military training related of technology that we are not privy to at this time, because they're doing their duty to try to protect and serve the country. So they don't have to tell us if it's something that they want to keep from enemies. You know what I mean? From enemy countries. So I don't know.
Would they be ballsy enough to... Because obviously someone's going to see that it's bright, and they're doing it at night, so I feel like that's going to catch even more attention.
Right.
So would the military test some special stuff, secret stuff, so blatantly in front of people?
I mean, they have before.
They have before.
In other places that I've heard of.
Okay.
So, but usually they let, like here in Salem, if there are military exercises that we have, and they usually say to the public, we're going to have a military exercise. They don't tell us what it is, but they said if you see something in the sky, it's most likely military
That
related.
makes me want to watch the sky.
Right.
It's like, what, did you hear that aliens are going to fly above us today?
But in that particular one, it was so different than any military thing that they've had videos of before, that it makes me think that it could be something else, but it's just that fine line. You know, there's that fine line. And I don't know if it's my brain being like, I need reality or I need this fantasy portion, so I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like all of that is above my expertise.
I just thought it was fascinating, and we needed to look at it and talk about it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like to say alien for everything because
I know, right? But I don't know what they would have been dropping. Was that like, you know how when a plane flies, sometimes they have to shoot out gas? Is that their form of releasing whatever is in their
I'd be interested to see maybe
craft.
like an uncut version of that video if it's
Sure.
existing online, since he said that he caught it for potentially 20 minutes, or he just watched it.
He watched it for about 20 minutes. But of course, you know how it is when you're watching. You're like, I got to grab my phone.
Right.
And they didn't have their phones. They had to run into the house, grab them, and then. But they talked to the neighbors, and the other neighbors were also out and saw it. So it's not like they were the only witnesses. And I guess there were other people who had called in.
The sighting.
Yeah, the sighting.
So maybe more stuff will come out about it. They're either going to try to cover it up because it's military or UFO.
Right.
I don't feel like they'll give us answers, but
Right.
keep an eye on it. Maybe we'll get something.
Super cool.
Yeah.
And then I have this other one. It's very
Okay.
short. It's also from a news station. I took this from our local K2 News, and there was a spirit sighting in Pennsylvania. So I felt like this was a little close to home because, you know, even though it happened in Pennsylvania, it was on our local news station. It was good enough to be there.
Right? I love that you have 2 videos today because I have a video to show you later too.
Nice.
I don't know, we're on the same wavelength.
I love it. So let's see if I can click on it. Oh, here it is. So once again, we'll post these below. This one is a really quick video. It's super quick, but it happened in Montgomery. And this is the fireplace over here. And you see this, there's going to be a mist that you see walking.
So this looks like surveillance footage almost.
Yes.
Okay, a whoa. A very whoa.
And it walks.
Okay, so I should describe what I saw. It was like a mass ball of mist that just moves from one corner to the other.
See it over here. I have to see if we can play it again.
Yeah, it's a very short video.
It is so short, and I don't know if it's going to allow me
I've
to go
heard
back.
of like corporeal, if that's the word.
Corporeal?
Corporeal mists. Plenty of times, but never really witnessed it, so I'm glad to see it.
Yeah.
So
the video is so short, and it makes you go back. And
it looks really sentient, like it's moving a giant mist form from one area to the next. That's
and there
not
was something
natural.
back here, if you look in this area when we watch it again.
It looked like a floating piece of paper.
I'm going to try to turn the sound down this time.
Okay, so here we're going to watch it again. Does the article have any insight onto more info?
No.
Okay. So really just this video got shared.
The news station was just like, hey, this could be your family visiting you for Christmas.
Oh.
And so then look back here, something will pop up.
So maybe it's the wind?
No, I don't think so. You see something back there, and then it's done. Like, that's all we get.
It's almost like the mist kind of goes out of frame and potentially goes back in this corner and is moving something. Or
moving. So it was a little interesting. It would have been nice to have a longer video, but sometimes with surveillance you can only capture so much. So
yeah, because it immediately left
the area
where it was being filmed. So that'd be great if it's like Grandpa who just completely takes a full body apparition out of the camera.
Yeah, he's like boom, boom, boom.
So even when you're trying to capture paranormal stuff, it's completely hard.
Right.
I like that. I really am happy to see that because when I heard, I don't know why I was more accustomed to hearing about full body apparitions as a kid on television than I was hearing about mist. So for me, the mist sounded like bullshit. But I talked to a person who worked at a haunted hotel who saw the mist himself. And now seeing this video, I'm going to say, I believe in mist.
Yeah.
Ghostly mist is...
Ghost mist. It was... I don't know what it would be. Maybe they're trying to take the form.
But it takes so much energy, possibly. And when we die, I like to think that I'm not in this body.
Right.
I like to think that I can just float around and do whatever. So I'd be down being a ball of mist.
Or if it's not a ghost, maybe it's a misty alien.
An alien? Oh, God damn it! That makes it scarier.
I'm sorry.
Like, no. Every time we think about aliens, like, I still have to wrap my head around them. So maybe by next year I'll be more comfortable with aliens because I'm slowly getting more comfortable with ghosts.
I love it.
So those are some good videos.
Yeah.
I recommend checking those out. I enjoyed seeing those.
Good.
So thank you for sharing.
No problem.
I did want to talk a little bit about the winter solstice since we're sitting here by the fire enjoying it. So if you're not too familiar with this holiday, it happens around December 20th to December 23rd, just kind of depending on the year. That's going to be the significance of the whole solstice is the fact that it's the longest night of the entire year and the shortest day of the year. So with our northern hemisphere, we're having the winter solstice, where I believe in opposite areas they're having like the longest day, shortest night kind of thing. So it's like the opposite. But starting the next morning after the solstice, at sunrise, the sun is going to climb just a little bit higher and stays a little bit longer in the sky each day. And that's kind of why pagans back in the day would celebrate the birth of the sun god and the sun king. He's coming back. So yeah, they would kind of call the sun king, he'd go by a lot of names. So he could be known as the oak king or the giver of life that warmed the frozen earth. And so for me, I kind of think that is another reason why there's a correlation between maybe celebrating the birth of Jesus. Like it's always been a time of celebrating the birth of like someone important.
Right.
Going through these harsh winter months, I think that is like essential for people to have hope to get through it all, because back in the day there was so much famine and starvation and all that kind of stuff.
And that's where Santa Claus would come in too.
I was thinking that too, because I was reading reports about early pagan communities kind of praying to Odin, and so they would call him, I think, Joel, which kind of is like jolly, and he's a man with a big beard. So I was like, does he kind of...
He resembles Santa.
Odin and Santa, yeah.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because, at Enchanted Forest, I think I sent you a picture of it when I went. They had this man that kind of they labeled him as Odin, and he looked like Santa Claus.
That's
and he had
true.
the wreath up above his head.
Yeah, that's kind of like the Oak King vibes.
Okay.
So I feel like Odin, I'm learning more about him as year goes by. So he's always kind of been around with this whole Nordic paganism, which I'm kind of like trying to follow and learn more about. And of course, this other fun fact that I learned last year is that in the long, dark night of the solstice, the barrier between the worlds of the living and the dead is said to be thin once more, just like at Halloween, aka Samhain.
Nice.
So really, for my Christmas, I'm just excited to ghost hunt with you.
Yeah, we're going to do that for sure.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, right? And like I said last episode, not hunt, more like communicate.
Yeah.
We're going to try to talk to some ghosties. And I guess this is where that tradition of gathering with your friends and loved ones around the solstice fire began. And people back in the day would be kind of a little more paranoid about it, like thinking they would protect each other from ghosts. They would even carefully scrutinize like the shadows cast upon the wall from the flames, because there was this tradition that if you saw your shadow without a head, that you would be dying the next year.
Oh my gosh!
So there's all these like occulty little creepy vibes that kind of go with it.
I wonder if you could use that with candlelight too. And,
I bet, right? It's fire, flame, it's natural. So today that's kind of what vibe we're going for. We want to be sitting around our Yule log, telling ghost stories. And that tradition was almost lost in time pretty much until one of the most famous ghost stories of all brought it back.
So one of our favorite stories from this time of year is A Christmas Carol. And for us, that is a symbol of growth, looking back at where we've been, where we are, and where we want to go. Today we're going to share ghost stories of past, present, and future, and we hope that you enjoy. Yay!
So I decided I would go ahead and talk about a ghost of the past.
All right.
So it's kind of a little bit of a longer build up to get to my ghostly sightings, but I think that they're kind of interesting, so hopefully you guys do too. But the ghost of the past that I want to talk about was Queen Anne Boleyn.
Yay! Was this the off with her head?
She got her head chopped off.
Okay.
Yeah, this is that queen. So I feel like that is kind of the main thing that we know about her. She was King Henry VIII's second wife, and she served as Queen of England from 1533 to 1536. And she spent her early years at the French courts as a lady of the Queen of France, Mary Tudor. And there she learned the French language. She developed an interest in art, dance, and manuscripts, literature, music, poetry, and even religious philosophy. So she was a very progressive, well-educated woman. And the quality of her education that Anne received was really demonstrated on her return home back to England, and there she inspired new thoughts and fashions among the ladies of the English court. They were pretty impressed by her. She had a different quality about her. She really stood out with this French attitude and confidence, and she's really well known in history for her beautiful dresses and her fashion. So others kind of strive to be like her. So massive trendsetter. And of course, she ended up kind of catching the eye of Henry. I believe that Henry, during his first marriage, he was married to Catherine. He had many mistresses, including Anne Boleyn's sister.
Gotcha.
So he started kind of seeing this sister on the side, and then ended up kind of, I don't know how or when, but he met Anne.
Henry's one of those disgusting dudes. Like, he literally had sex with everyone. In fact, died from syphilis.
Oh, okay. So that was a sexual transmitted disease?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. He got his comeuppance.
Yeah.
He definitely did. He started writing Anne, like, letters, kind of like a puppy dog in love. Like, just old school smitten. He would write, like, their names in a heart, and historians have found these letters where he was just, like, trying to convince her to be with him. And Anne, I don't know if she was just trying to play the Game of Thrones here, but she was essentially like, I'm not going to sleep with you unless you marry me.
Okay.
And so Henry...
I mean, that's typical from that time period, I feel like.
I guess. I mean, he convinced a lot of other women to just sleep with him.
That's true.
He had all these other mistresses, but Anne wasn't interested in being a mistress.
Mm-hmm.
So something about her, she was like, I won't be a mistress, but I'll marry you.
She was kind of classy.
I guess so, yeah. She had vision. She had, I don't know, she had goals in mind, I guess, to climb the ladders. And so Henry really performed drastic action to be with her. He completely reformed the Catholic Church, opposing the Pope. He put himself kind of as head of the church, all to get a divorce so he could marry Anne. And his first wife, Catherine, was not producing any heirs, like any male heirs. So this was kind of another, I guess, motivation for Henry to move on.
Right.
So,
and it was acceptable for him to move on if she couldn't
produce an heir.
Gosh, it's so crazy.
Right. And so when in his time being with Anne, she gave birth to a female heir, one of the most infamous queens of all, Queen Elizabeth I. And at that time, as a baby, no one respected Queen Elizabeth, or Elizabeth, I should say. She was just kind of cast aside. After that, Anne gave birth to 2 stillborns. And Henry still had mistresses at this time, and he ended up wanting to leave Anne to marry one of those other mistresses. So his patterns kept continuing. I'm thinking, Anne, you should have saw that coming.
Yeah, typical Henry.
Yeah, and so after the stillborns and after not giving him a son, he basically is known in history as wanting nothing to do with poor Anne Boleyn anymore. So he exiled her, and he ended up trying to get rid of her. He charged her with a bunch of nonsense that she really never even did.
Oh.
So he attacked her with treason, a bunch of slander and lies against her, including infidelity and incest with her own brother, which historians don't think happened. I want to say most historians think this is all lies.
Yeah, he probably made it up because he wanted out of the marriage.
Exactly.
And she wasn't going to let him go.
Yeah. So she ended up having to be beheaded. And this is a very famous incident that took place on May 19th, 1536 at the Tower of London. And she was the first queen to be publicly executed. And while she was waiting for this whole thing to happen, she's reported as being kind of hysterical, which why wouldn't you be? She was, going through phases of laughing to being in denial to just completely laughing at her own predicament and being like, but my neck's so small, how are they going to hit it? And just laughing and crying. And I feel really bad for her. Like, I can't imagine what that would be like, knowing that you're about to be beheaded. And back in the day, there was just so much pride in being professional or, having your wits about you. So at the time of the beheading is when she really pulled it all together. She was known for being kind of, not reserved, but kind of calm in the moment. She was saying nothing but nice things about Henry and saying that how people should support the king, and she wishes nothing but good things on the king. And I'm thinking, why wouldn't in your last moments you just be like, fuck you?
Yeah.
But they say that she did this to save Elizabeth's life.
Okay.
To save the life of her child. She wanted to just kind of go along with everything, to not shake the water so that no repercussions would happen to her family.
Good mom.
Very good mom. So she was beheaded in one fell swoop, so that's one nice thing I can think about it. She probably died quickly, other than the horrible anxiety she had leading up to all of that, of course. Her head and her body were placed in an old arrow chest, kind of unceremoniously just thrown in there, and buried in an unmarked crypt for the longest time in the chapel at the Tower of London. Now I believe it is marked, and people know where she's at. But if you just kind of look at some of these events, she's a woman who went through a lot of turmoil. She has a lot of unfinished business, I would think, being basically unjustly murdered. And so her ghost is said to be one of the most busy ghosts in Europe. It is seen all over the place in Sally Church, the Tower of London, Bickling Hall, Marwell Hall, Hampton Court, all these different castles. So I don't really know, what does that say about an entity that it can be seen at so many different locations?
Seems residual.
A residual haunting.
That's what it would remind me of, that her energy was so strong and so prominent that she would be in all places.
Right. So a residual is not intelligent, so that just means she's replaying old moments of time.
Right.
That sounds exactly right. That actually sounds exactly like all the stuff that I found about her sightings. Some of these sightings that I wanted to share with you are some of the bigger ones.
Nice.
So in Windsor Castle, there's reports of a headless Anne Boleyn seen running down a corridor, clutching her severed, screaming head. It sounds kind of more like fairy tale than reality. I don't know if that is just a rumor because of her tragic death that people say stuff like that.
Right.
Or was she really doing it? But that'd be horrifying.
Yeah, that would be really horrifying.
As a kid, I did read like one of these tween books about Queen Elizabeth, and in the book she would reference how her mother's ghost would be seen down the hallway. So I feel like it's a very common story about Anne Boleyn.
Right.
I don't know why, for some reason I don't know if it's true with this one.
I wonder if, like, there's a possibility that she could be residually haunting a lot of places but be present in one place.
That she just has that much power. I doubt she's at all of them at once, but
yeah, that'd be a little rough.
There's also another famous sighting that takes place at the Tower of London, you know, the place of her death. And this sighting is from 1864 by a military man, General Dundas. And he saw Anne Boleyn in the form of a ghostly white figure. And she was moving towards the guard. Her feet were not touching the floor. And it was in a courtyard. Basically, this is where she was kept prisoner before she was killed. So she has a lot of horrible memories here. And the guard was kind of terrified. He just panicked, and he charged at her with his bayonet. Like, he just went into, like, combat mode. And to his complete shock, the weapon did go straight through her. You know, there's no flesh. There was no resistance. And it is said that another officer witnessed the entire thing from his window.
Oh my gosh.
So he had a witness that wasn't a dog.
Yeah, it wasn't a dog. Oh my gosh,
yeah.
Lucky.
And it was a military court-martial who wanted to charge that guard for fainting on duty and abandoning his post.
What? Oh no.
And this is all, like, documented in history. And he was saved by the General Dundas who witnessed it, and he testified on trial and was like, no, I saw this ghost figure of Anne Boleyn. He was doing his job. So I just think that's so funny that, like, they took it so seriously, abandoning your post and fainting.
He was like, I wasn't. I was just frightened.
Yeah, I was just frightened, and I tried to kill the ghost, but she's already dead.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That's crazy. That's a crazy story.
For it to be recorded at a trial.
Yeah.
There's another kind of old school sighting that is recorded in history in the Tower of London again. This one is taking place in the Chapel Royale. There was one man who was doing his guard duty at night. He was the captain of the guard. And he saw that there was a light flickering inside the chapel late one night. And he decided to, I guess, climb a ladder to look inside. I'm not quite sure the logistics of the situation, why he couldn't peer inside a window or a door. But the story says he climbed a ladder to look inside. And what he saw was a scene out of time. It was a procession of ladies and knights in centuries-old dress who were parading through the chapel, and they were led by Queen Anne Boleyn herself.
Whoa.
And she looked just kind of like the paintings, and that's why he was able to peg her. He was like, wait, I recognize that face. That's Queen Anne Boleyn. And the way they're, like, treating her with such reverence. You know, she was the important one out of everyone in the scene that really stood out to him. So it's just interesting. You're right. Her old stories are just kind of like replaying. So maybe that was a moment in time.
Right. That she was connected to. I'd hate to think. There's this theory that residual haunting could be not just leftover energy, but the person is having to relive the events over and over again until they can get past those events to move on to the next place.
And so if that's true, she was in 1500s and people are seeing her in the 1800s. That's such a long time.
So hopefully it was just some residual energy, but I'd hate to think of her being trapped for hundreds and hundreds of years in this place, having to relive her life over and over again.
Right. Unfinished business, still unsettled after all this time. That is kind of sad.
Even though Henry is long gone now.
I don't know if anyone sees his ghost. I didn't come up across any of that, but I didn't look for it specifically.
Sure.
That's a good point. Oh, so some people think that maybe because her bones are buried there, that maybe she's kind of attached to the tower, like it's an anchor to her soul.
Mm-hmm.
But there is one ghost that is super peaceful, and it's seen annually around Christmas. And that's kind of how this whole thing ties together, is that her Christmas ghost is seen at Hever Castle, which is Anne's childhood home. And hopefully I'm not mispronouncing that. And, you know, people like to say that's a place of her more happier memories in time before going off to court, before getting tangled into all this mess of Henry. And in fact, in the beginning of their relationship, her and Henry would walk those grounds together, and that was where their early, more innocent era of courting each other was. So she has a lot of good memories there. And so on Christmas, you can actually see her ghost walking under a tree on the grounds there. And so it'll go from the tree and she'll cross a bridge on the grounds, and while she's on the bridge, there's been people who have seen her tossing a sprig of holly into the river right before disappearing into a mist.
Oh, interesting.
So I feel like Queen Anne Boleyn does have a lot of maybe unfinished business about her.
Yeah, for sure.
Or she's just so powerful that she's able to like pop up in all of these places that she kind of held power in.
Mm-hmm. Powerful in life, powerful in death.
Yeah. And so thinking about her being a ghost from the past, but we see her in the present, you know, there's that theory that we kind of were thinking about, that our ghost just a time slip.
Right, or it's just all time exists at once, and yeah, you're right, just slipping in and out.
Yeah, so is it just those impressions, we're hearing them or we're seeing them, and it's just an old memory playing?
Like an echo.
Yeah. And to them, are we ghosts?
It's hard to wrap our mind around, you know, because I know science says that time is not linear.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Meaning that it doesn't go in one direction, it can go in all directions.
Right. So that's where it kind of makes me think, if she's just walking in this chapel, going about her business in a normal day, and all those people, you saw all those specters.
Right.
Did he just get a weird time impression?
Right. Or a replay. Like, everything's been recorded on VHS and somebody hit play at that moment.
Such an old play tape with like graininess.
Yeah.
And so they looked all spectery. I don't know, she's kind of like a martyr to us now. She just seems like such a strong woman who went through so much, and you kind of feel for her.
Right. Right.
So poor Queen Anne Boleyn. But at least her daughter had such an amazing legacy in life, and she was able to go on and
for sure
not have to marry a man. And
and then women became so much more powerful.
Yeah.
After that.
So she had a good legacy.
In the sense of that time period where a queen could rule rather than just it being a king.
Yeah.
It's a big step.
Yeah, so I do feel like at least there's that. She had left behind her legacy of her beautiful daughter. And
amazing.
Just like you, I found a video.
I'm excited!
So this is a video of a possible Anne ghost caught at Hampton Court.
Okay.
So this is like a full body apparition. This will be another link we'll leave in the show notes. So I'll let you watch this one.
Okay. It's so fast. Oh my gosh. Wow, you can see her whole headdress kind of thing.
Okay, so let's describe for our listeners. We're going to replay it. So it's like another security camera footage of a doorway at the castle. It just bursts open.
Right. And then you can see kind of this ghost with, I mean, you can see the two arms.
Whoa, and a head.
And a head and the legs and the full gown. I cannot even explain. Like, I feel like we've seen Anne Boleyn in that gown, like a picture painted in that gown.
Damn. So it's kind of creepy because it just looks like a normal person opening a window.
And you said this is Hampton Court?
Yeah.
I wonder what this door leads to.
Right? I don't know why I thought like maybe a kitchen or something.
Maybe.
But
she opens it up and she's just like...
Hello! Yeah.
But she seems like she's in a rush. You see how she's just like, ugh.
And then she closes it right back.
Yeah. Maybe she just needed to let something out.
There's
that's
no
a
arguing.
really, yeah, that's a really good, and it does look like her. I swear that head looks like her. Interesting. What a good find.
Yeah, so
That's
people
awesome.
see her all over the damn place.
I love it.
Very powerful ghost going on here.
Wow. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
What a good ghost of Christmas past.
Yes. I'm glad you enjoyed. So
Yes. All right. So I have a ghost of Christmas present. I gotta pull up the image really quick for you.
Okay.
there is an image and then I'll talk about it. So what we're looking at here is this, where'd
We'll
it
have
go?
to link this one too, guys.
Yeah, we're looking at this right here.
So this looks like a Christmas tree illuminated at night, and in the tree there's like what looks like a face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the story goes, and this is Christmas present, mind you. So this happened in 2018. I think that's present enough.
Yeah.
And it was in England, in this little town called Bolton. And there was this woman. She's a caregiver and a ghost investigator.
Cool.
And her name is Melanie Scholes. And for those of you who don't know what a caregiver is, it's basically somebody who just goes into the home and she maybe does nurse type activities
For elderly patients.
And so she went to this woman. She actually had the patient there and the coworker there, and it's Christmas time, and the woman, they want to make her happy, so they're starting to set up a tree. So they set up a tree, and when they get it all finished, they kind of sit back and they're just talking about relatives who've passed on. And
Aww.
the woman was talking about, the patient I should say, she was talking about how her brother had passed earlier in the year from cancer, and she was really upset, because he wasn't going to be there with her this year to celebrate, and she really didn't have any family, and she was just thankful for these nurses to come and help her set up the tree.
That's very sweet.
And the Melanie Scholes, she had talked about people in her life who had passed as well, and they took pictures of the tree, and as they were sitting there just admiring it, one of the little baubles, like a ball, the decoration, came flying off the tree and fell to the ground and crashed. And she said there was no way that could have happened. They secured all of the balls, and it just kind of looked like it had been pulled and tossed onto the ground.
Sounds like Agatha.
Exactly. And, they were like, okay, I'm just going to clean this up. Well, they were going back and looking at the pictures, and she was showing the patient, these are the pictures we took. And the patient goes, my brother, this is my brother in this picture. And so the picture that we've got linked, it shows a picture of a face and kind of like an ornament. And she swore that was her brother.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he came to be with his sister.
Right. Yeah.
That's very sweet.
Right. So I thought, as a thing, don't forget to remember those who have passed on during this time of year. Just like in Samhain, you can light candles in their memory. Maybe purchase a decoration in their honor and place it on the tree. I know I have several that I like to place on my tree for people who've passed.
Aww.
And then just thank them and keep them in your memory and keep their story alive by talking about them.
That's a great way to honor them.
Yeah.
And since the veil is supposedly thinner, it should be easier for them to make themselves known.
Right.
So
Right.
I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Just a short little story, but I just thought it was worth sharing to know that these things are still happening.
Yeah. Christmas goes to the presents. I mean, it still happens. And
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of more of a traditional haunting that I think of. It's just like a relative coming to see you now.
Right.
These days.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's sweet.
Yeah. Super sweet. So now I have a Ghost of Christmas Future. This one is a little bit different.
Okay.
I do have to say that. Sorry, I'm gonna make sure I have this.
Up and then we'll...
Yeah. So I have to say that with the Ghost of Christmas Future, it was really hard. I went back and forth deciding, should I write my own story, trying to get my family involved to maybe write a story for the future. But then I was like, looking online, and I came across this thing. It didn't happen at Christmas, but it happened in the wintertime, so I thought it was worth...
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough. So I know in some of our previous episodes we talked about doppelgangers, and this story is like that, but not like that at the same time. And so I want to read the experience as written from the person, and then we could kind of discuss it afterwards. So what I found was a woman had written into another person who experiences time slips. Like, she has this time slip page, and so
Ooh.
I will link her page. Her page is actually really cool, and she has a lot of experiences on there.
I love this idea of time slips.
Yes. And so this woman writes in, and she's somewhere in British Columbia, and she says, one day I was waiting for a friend to arrive at my home. She was coming on a ferry and riding from another ferry to our place, so she had to take her bike with her so she could go from the ferry to their house. About 20 minutes before the woman was due to arrive on the ferry, it started to rain very heavily, so I decided on a whim to go pick her up. I took my husband's car since he has a bike rack on the back. His car is relatively distinctive. It was at that time a brand new green Subaru with a high-end bike rack on the back that is not too common where we live. I hurried out of the house and pulled on a bright red fleece hoodie that's very distinctive, as it is a kid-size hoodie because I'm very small and able to fit into it. So she's this tiny woman. As I drove down the quiet country road, I saw another Subaru coming toward me and noted it was the same color as my husband's. As I got nearer, I noticed a woman wearing a bright red top. And when I passed, I looked directly into my own eyes.
Whoa.
I was even wearing the exact same bright red hoodie. Unbelievably, it seemed that I was driving the car that passed me on the opposite side of the road, going in the opposite direction. I got a good look to see that she, me, was looking directly at me. She had the same hair, same clothes. Her expression was intent, but showed no surprise. As soon as I passed the car, I looked in my rearview mirror in shock to see the same bike rack on the back, but it was empty and my friend's bike was not on it. I pulled over immediately, feeling very shaken up, and rationalized that it could not have been me, as there could have been, or it's because if it was me, there would have been a bike on the back. Because she's going to pick up her friend.
Right.
So she says, I drove on and a few minutes later met up with my friend. And by the time I reached her, the rain had stopped and she decided she didn't want to ride with me because she wanted to dry out. So she wanted to take the bike to her place. So she wasn't going to ride with her. And she said, I drove home with no bike on the rack. About 8 minutes later, I went past the same exact spot I believe I may have previously seen myself. This may seem nuts, but I looked for myself, actually believing I might see myself on the other side of the road, but it didn't happen.
Wow. So this doppelganger, to her, it felt like it was super current.
Right.
Like within the same day that she could recreate
Right.
it from the other
And
side.
she didn't think of it as a doppelganger. She just thought that was me. She was like she was seeing into the future almost.
Yeah. That's true. It's not another version of her.
Right.
Wow.
So she was seeing herself.
Wow. Time slips is so crazy and
Right.
hard for us to comprehend. But I mean, like we said, if time is not linear, who's to say we can't see ourselves of the future?
Right.
Whoa.
Right. It's pretty crazy.
It is pretty crazy. It is. It makes me think of those time slips that happened at Marie Antoinette's gardens. How those two women were like walking, and then all of a sudden they got transported back into the Marie Antoinette era.
Right.
And they had this whole experience and this whole day back in that time. And then somehow they got out of it, and they were like scholarly women. I think teachers ended up writing the book about it.
And that kind of stuff I heard happens in England a lot.
Oh, time slips?
Yeah.
What does that say?
I think scientifically it would say that at some point in time we learned time travel in that area. To me, I mean, just...
That's a theory, yeah.
Just a theory, scientific theory.
Yeah. Very interesting. I don't think I've ever really seen anything like that with my own eyes yet.
Right. I've never seen myself. I do remember when I was younger... I would say middle school age. My mom said she went into my bedroom. I wasn't home, but she went into my bedroom and she saw me standing in the closet, but it wasn't me. It was an older version of me.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so she was like, you looked back at me and smiled and waved, and then you disappeared.
Wow. So your mom's seen ghosts.
Yes.
Or not ghosts, because
no,
it was you.
it was me. So it was like a blip of the future.
Wow. So I'm thinking now that there's even more going on with your family than we have uncovered. I'm like, so your mom sees it too?
I feel like everybody in our family has seen ghosts at some point. I feel like there are lots of people who've seen ghosts in the world, but nobody wants to talk about it.
That's true. Yeah. I think it's a good piece of advice to like just ask people what they've seen, and you'll be surprised what you hear.
Right. It's the same with UFOs. Like, I'll get into a conversation with people at work, about work stuff, and then all of a sudden, hey, did I ever tell you about the time that my husband saw a UFO? And I'm like, what?
Yes, please stop. Tell me more.
Tell me all.
Yeah. It's trippy because I only ever thought of ghosts as being something from the past. But really that could explain these time slips.
Yeah. And if time is not in that linear fashion, could something per se from the future be such a strong moment that you can also see it in the past? So, like, do you remember in our very first episode we talked about Nuremberg, Germany, and the people who saw something in the year like 500?
Flying crafts. Battle in the sky.
Yeah. Could that be something from the future that was significant enough to be a ghost in the past?
Yeah, that kind of sounds like it. I feel like I don't hear about future slips as often, but maybe I do and I'm just not.
I had a really hard time locating it. I feel like people don't want to talk about this because it's even crazier than seeing a ghost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you can see a ghost and be like, okay, you saw a ghost from the past or from the present who recently died. Plausible. You saw a ghost from the future?
Yeah. And maybe you don't always know it's from the future if it's not like a spacesuit and high tech. Maybe you don't even know.
Right.
But when it's yourself, of course, you're going to know if it looks older or different. So it's maybe not always as distinguishable.
Right.
Who's to say your future self didn't throw Agatha off the tree?
I'm like, is this proof enough? I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm valid.
Exactly. You're like so trying to get the proof of ghosts that you're trying to do it yourself.
Just like me.
Yeah. I'll get Agatha to move and talk. That would be perfect.
And then now my ghost is like, she didn't see.
Yeah, exactly. You're frustrated. Yeah. She didn't catch it on camera.
Damn me.
Yeah, because your future self was like, oh yeah, I have surveillance footage cameras in the living room.
Yeah.
But little did you know at this point in time
They're
they don't work.
unplugged.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Who cracked the case?
Yeah. Oh.
So I definitely want to learn more about time slips.
Absolutely.
Definitely want to learn more about that stuff.
Yeah. So, and that happens a lot. I feel like that happens a lot, but we don't really talk about it. So.
Because like you said, who's going to believe you?
Right. And I feel like we could look back in history to see those future slips. It's just like, I don't know how close you follow archaeological stuff, but occasionally they'll come across like maybe a footprint that was from a shoe that came from the future. But it's in something,
dated.
Yeah, it's dated from like, 5, 6, 7,000 years ago.
Right. I have heard about that stuff. I think like maybe was it ancient aliens, so I didn't know if I trusted it. But if it's something that's more common than I realized, then what does that say?
Right. Ugh. So how did we have our foot in the future and the past?
Yeah. Creepy stuff.
Time travel.
Yeah. So with the Anne Boleyn stuff, like I wonder, like if ghosts aren't attached to the soul and they can just do their own thing, or these time slips can just do their own thing, and as you as a dead person, is your conscious somewhere else, not even aware of those time slips?
Yeah, that's a good thought. I never even thought about that one.
Maybe she's not consciously aware that she's walking around and freaking people out.
Right.
And her soul is just somewhere else.
That could be.
Right.
Interesting thought.
I guess when it's a residual haunting, that's more possible.
Sure.
When it's not intelligent, like the more present haunting was of the brother just watching his sister in the tree.
Right. Definitely the fact that everything, the procession of Anne Boleyn that they were talking about, even the video that you showed with the door opening, most likely that was a residual entity.
Yeah.
So it was just a picture from the past.
Right. Very interesting.
Very cool.
I definitely want to do some ghost talking on our solstice, so we'll have to update you guys with our next episode what we get.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Such good times. Gotta love the ghost talk.
I know.
Oh, this is a good episode. I was really loving this.
I did too. Like, of course I was thinking in my mind, I feel like last year that I would tell spooky ghost stories, but really when we look at it, it's never, like, we just are humanizing ghosts, I feel like.
Right.
Nothing to be afraid of.
Because it's not like in the movies.
No.
They're not going to come and murder you. They're not going to...
rattle chains.
Yeah. It's not going to be like that.
They'll throw a doll, maybe.
Sure. Or stuff. Or open cupboard doors or...
It's just not as spine-tingling as, you know, tall tales are. I guess real sightings are just a little more down to earth.
Right. They're like, I'm going to pull your hair or try to get your attention by touching your face.
I don't know if I said this on podcast, but how you're saying how you can feel ghost touches, like, and how I was telling you how I felt like I was getting touched by my cat. Well, when I was thinking about that, I remember in high school, middle school, I used to always feel like things were touching my arms at school all the time, and I would always have a black hoodie on at that stage of my life, and I would go like this and push up my hoodie to my elbows and be like, are my arm hairs getting pulled by my fabric? And I'd look around at my arm hairs and just try to like debunk it, and I could never figure it out, and then I would just put the hoodie back down, and it constantly felt like there were fingers running up my arms, and at that time in my life, I was not like open or connected to spiritual things like that. I wonder if there were ghosts in the school that were always touching my arms.
Could have been. I'm like, let's go back and see. Let's go to that school.
Yeah, I've got a brother in school right now. I should ask him, hey, do you ever feel weird things on your arms?
I love it.
So yeah, just weird thoughts, because if you're not open to thinking about it being a ghost, you're not going to see it.
Right.
Or if you have fear of a ghost, I feel like you can make it not appear, maybe.
Right.
Like, the other night, I was kind of freaking myself out, and I was super tired. I was trying to practice seeing auras, and I was really open. I was, like, really tired, so I felt like there was a part of me that was just kind of conked out, and a part of me that was trying to focus and see otherworldly things.
Right.
And I started freaking myself out like I was seeing shadow people, but I don't know if it was my imagination. So
or if they were there.
Or if they were there. So I started closing myself off and saying, no, go away, go away.
Right.
But what would have happened if I had said yes?
This is where I've been before. I've been in your spot before, so I think you would have seen more.
I need to be more brave and not get scared, because I'm still in the moment, in the dark, by myself, feeling fear.
Right. So with practice, I feel like the more, I mean, you're aware of that fear now. Whereas maybe before you wouldn't have been aware of that.
Or even open to seeing anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now that you're aware of the fear, you can repress that fear or say no to the fear, because you know in your mind that nothing is going to happen.
Yeah.
Other than visually you're going to see something that society says you're crazy for seeing.
Right, or is evil.
Right.
Because even in those moments I'm still thinking of like a creepy ghost.
Right.
I'm not thinking of a nice ghost.
No. You're not going to see face melting, people on fire.
Right.
Coming at you with a knife.
Yeah.
Most likely that's not going to... I say like 99.9% sure that's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Someday, guys, I'm going to see something.
You are. You're almost there.
I
You're
know.
getting so close.
The fact that I'm open to the physical touch, you know, I think it's just going to take some more time to feel comfortable and not feel crazy.
Yep. I bet by your birthday.
Maybe so.
Yeah. She's going to be coming back, you guys, with these great stories.
Maybe.
And we'll both be like, woohoo!
Right. Level up, level up.
That's right. It's just a video game.
Life is our video game.
Yeah. All right. Should we wrap it up?
I think we should wrap it up, you guys.
Yeah.
I really hope you enjoyed our little Christmas ghosty stories and our Yule log. And thank you so much for listening. As always, you can join us next Wednesday for another episode. And in the meantime, you can find us over on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Cousins Coven. And you can check out our blog at cousinscoven.home.blog, where you can find witchy words of wisdom, spells, and all of our archived podcast episodes from season 1. And you guys, send in your research ideas, witchy questions, if you just want to talk to us, or you have your own paranormal experiences. We want to hear from you. And that's going to be cousinscoven2@gmail.com. So please like, subscribe, and share our podcast with all of your witchy and weirdo friends.
And may you find happiness in your heart, love for yourself, and joy in each other. Blessings to all.